we have frequently gone through, most of us have gone through significant hard times. The question is, what have you done to help yourself get through those really difficult times?
Are you a working professional but struggling to balance the workload of your career, family, obligations, and preparing for your financial future? If so, this podcast is for you. You've spent years learning your craft, and now it's time to focus on your financial future. This podcast will teach you what you need to retire wealthy and happy. Let's dive in.
Today's episode is powered by Monument Real Estate Capital. Welcome to the Retire Wealthy and Happy podcast. Earl, today we have the totally awesome Brad Lancaster. Brad Lancaster is a great friend and started Keller Williams Brokerage, flipped a lot of houses and been through some tough personal circumstances and thrived in the face of adversity. Good morning, Brad. How you doing today?
Good morning, Roger. Earl, thank you. That's a very kind introduction. I'm doing wonderful and great. Thank you guys for taking the time to have me on your podcast.
Hey, good morning, man. It's good to have you. We were both, Roger and I were there at the RIA meeting, 2 or 3 weeks ago, something like that. Heard both you and your wife spoke. I'm sitting back at the back of the room going, Roger, we need to get him on our podcast. This guy has a story to tell, and it's one that I think our viewers will relate to. And so we're really, really excited to have you. And coincidentally, I think we've got your wife going to be with us tomorrow. She's going to get a chance to tell her side of the story, which we've already joked about. We're pretty sure that hers is going to be way, way different than your side of the story. But that's okay. That's what makes us different. So
that's right. That's right. Well, I appreciate you having me on. And my story, in 2016, my story hit what is the low point of my life. I ended up I was in Salt Lake County Jail, serving a 12-month sentence. And I was 45 years old. And on day 3, I remember being so confused, thinking this is not where my life was supposed to end up, as depressed and as low as I had ever been. And the way I ended up there is a story in and of itself, and then what we've been able to do since then. I was born in a big family, 6 kids, one of 6 kids, a religious family. I looked pretty happy childhood. My family moved, but I really enjoyed my childhood, played sports. Nothing like I wasn't any great athlete or anything, but enjoyed playing football and basketball and baseball and wrestled a little bit. And I went to college, went to BYU, graduated from there. In the process, I got married and started a career. I graduated with a degree in education and started early on in entrepreneurship ventures. Sold alarm systems door to door, sold food storage door to door. In 1999, I got involved in the mortgage business. I'd been in another training capacity and training on sales and marketing for small businesses. 99, I got involved in the mortgage business and shortly started with a former missionary companion, actually. We started flipping houses, doing small developments, infill developments. He was kind of teaching me. By 2004, I was a real estate agent. I had figured out a lot of stuff about buying distressed properties, buying foreclosed properties. I was buying houses from off the MLS. I was buying houses from private sellers. We were negotiating short sales. We were negotiating short sales back before there were loss mitigation departments in major mortgage companies, actually. By 2008, I had built, as you mentioned, I had started the Keller Williams Westfield office in Orem with some partners. And from the outside looking in, everything looked pretty hunky-dory. But the truth is, I was running a bad business. I was not. I was a complete fraud, essentially, is the way I like to put it. But I wasn't. And when I say fraud, I mean I was making everything look like it was okay, but it wasn't. By 2008, if everybody remembers the crash of 2008, we had invested, my partners and I, in several land developments, had moved away from single family into land development as my primary business. And then I was a real estate agent, so I was still listing and selling stuff. But as the market started to crash in 2008, my mistakes started to become exposed. And the main mistake I had made is I was over leveraged. I had borrowed more money than I was going to be able to pull back or pay back as property started depreciating, especially dirt. Dirt started depreciating so fast. My life was exposed in 2009 when the IRS showed up on my then wife's door. I was out of town with my daughter at a girls' camp. They showed up telling her that we owed $125,000 to the IRS. She called me up and said, "I thought you had taken care of this." For the first time in my adult life, I was confronted. I'd been contemplating like all of the lies that I had been telling to try to keep balls in the air, to try to keep this appearance of everything just being great. I was confronted with the truth that I couldn't do it any longer. And this soul crushing weight of truth was coming down on me. And so I told her and made a decision in that moment that I was just going to be honest with her. And so I told her, no, I had lied to her about taking care of this IRS issue. And not only that, but we were broke, not just broke, like I was upside down. I owed more money than I could conceivably ever pay back. The projects were in a negative equity position. I had no idea how I was ever going to get out of it. And I had lost a lot of money, had lost a lot of people's money, and had no idea how I was going to pay it back. I went through a really ugly divorce. In addition to that, I personally came clean with her that I had been unfaithful. And so I went through a really nasty divorce. For a time, wasn't seeing my children, lost my community, lost my businesses. I ended up selling business telephone systems for a local data and telephone company, and then working at a bar at night as a bouncer and bar back. And that's what I was doing to make ends meet for about 6 months. But even though I lost everything, I lost my community, I lost my relationships, lost my family for a while. For the first time in my adult life, I was 38 years old. I gained a sense of integrity that I hadn't felt in a long time, maybe ever as an adult. And so I made a commitment that I would be honest, that I'd be truthful. And while my business hasn't been perfect since I made that change, in fact, my businesses have gone through everything that any business goes through, ups and downs, good hires, bad hires, good deals, bad deals. I can stand and say I've been honest about it all since then. And so when I was in jail in 2016 and I hit this low point, I decided on day 4, Tiffany, my wife, came to visit me, and I was staring at 365 days straight in that hellhole. I didn't know how I was going to make it. I didn't know how I was going to make it emotionally. I didn't know how I was going to make it physically. I didn't know how I was going to make it. And I said to her, that there's got to be some way for me to get out of here. She came to visit me, her first visit. And she said, "There's not. You have to figure this out. You have to make this. You have to make it through this." And so somewhere within me, between reading books and a lot of meditation and introspection, I decided, okay, I'm going to do this better than anybody has ever done jail. And then I'm going to build something better than anybody's ever been able to build coming out of this situation. Because if I can't, it's not about me anymore. It's about what can I do to help others? Because if this doesn't serve to help anybody else, if it's just about me surviving, what's the point? It seems so small, like such a small reason to really get up every day, work on myself, work on my fitness, work on my mindset. So I decided I'm going to have to I have to do this well, because I need to show other people that they can make it through something really, really tough. Whether it's through their own creation, like mine was, and mine was by and large 100% my creation. I told the lies. I decided to be deceptive. I made all these decisions. And so anything terrible that happened to me, I had created it, and I was worthy of all of it. But I was also worthy of everything. I made this decision that I was worthy of everything great that life had to offer. And both can be true, that you can be worthy of all the shit you're going through, all the hard stuff. I earned it. And then I also was worthy of anything great that life had to offer. And so with that mindset, I decided I'm just going to live the best life I can. My wife and I, when I ended up spending 8 months in the Salt Lake County jail, I got out because I did a really good job of being a really model inmate. And they let me out 4 months early, which was fantastic, because every day spent in incarceration is, when somebody tells you they've done 8 years, they did 80 years. Somebody tells you they did 15 years, they did 150 years. Being incarcerated, I don't care where you're at, it's the ultimate of like just hard thing that I've experienced. I don't know. I'm sure there are other things that people experience that are comparable or maybe even worse, but for me, absolutely the worst thing. But at the same time, it is the best thing that's ever happened for me. And so both can be true as well, right? Absolutely the worst thing and absolutely the best thing.
Hey, I want to jump in here just for a second, if that's okay. You shared a lot of really, really personal things, and we really appreciate you sharing them. I joked with you earlier that I went through a really, really nasty divorce myself, and spent a little bit of time. Mine wasn't, contempt of court is 30 days. And that's probably what you expect when you ask the judge if you wore a skirt next time, if his decision would be any different. So anyway, well, that's we probably don't want to get off too far on that one, but I can relate to exactly what you're saying, right? Because I was in there a short period of time. Judge wanted to make an example of me because I had a child support order that was more than I made at the time. It was very difficult to keep up on it. One of the things that as I'm sitting here listening, you found yourself in trouble financially because you, I don't know if it was over leveraged or bad deals. If it's, I'm just curious your perspective, because I know there's a lot of people. My dad. When I was married by the time the business had taken a turn for the worse, but they found themselves in a recession when they shut their business down. I think they had 250 unsold lots and probably 50 spec homes that were sitting there, and it was just, hey, business is great. This year we're gonna do 10. Next year we're gonna do 25, and the year after we're gonna do, and we're just gonna continue to grow and grow. And the money came in. My uncle had a Baron, a Beechcraft Baron. It's a sports car of twin engine airplanes, and I just think it's easy to get into that situation. I'm just curious your perspective on what it is that as far as your business, what do you think got you there, and what are some of the things that you might do differently?
Great question, Earl. So I believe and I've spent a lot of time thinking what got me there. And I believe ultimately what gets us into any problem is the same thing that gets us out of any problem, and it's mindset. Mindset is the number one thing. And I had a mindset of entitlement, that I'm a smart guy. I talk easily with people. I'm deserving of anything and everything I want just because of who I am. I mean, it might even be narcissistic, like type of behavior. Probably is. Like anybody would probably. The difference is like narcissists, the people can't realize narcissism, where conscious people can see, okay, that was narcissistic. That was a lot of ego. I've got to change that. That will not serve me or the people I love going forward. So also the other thing, that narcissism leads, and that narcissistic, like this entitlement leads to an attitude of, I know everything. So a lack of a student mindset. I was so slow to go to ask people for help. I would read one thing, learn one thing, and then act like I knew it already. Act like I've got this figured out. I would go to a seminar and I'd learn something. I'd be like, okay, that's how you develop land. And thinking I can just skip a lot of the steps, thinking I can take shortcuts. From a strategic standpoint, I mean, it's really simple. I would buy stuff and then not do everything necessary to get the project done. I was a terrible operator. And rather than going and hiring somebody to be a great operator, the ego in me, the narcissism, the entitlement, believed I didn't have to. I really, it's hard for me to even think, but how I was planning to exit these, but just really not a good plan. No good plan, no good bookkeeping to keep. I was just running a really, really bad business. My business was basically based off of, as long as I kept revenue coming in through either, commissions or, a lot of us strategize and we structure deals to make money when we buy deals. We get paid an acquisition fee, or we get paid something that looks like we're doing good. And we build these, we buy these projects and it looks like we've got this much in equity, right? Well, that project is worth $5 million or $500,000, whatever. And I bought it for $400,000. I've got $100,000 in equity, and you can sell that equity to, to lenders or to partners and say, hey, I need, $20,000, $30,000, even with the best of intentions that I'm going to spend that and get this project done. And it worked for a while. Like I was, the Ferris wheel just kept spinning. Money would come in. I'd finish a project. I'd throw off the money, and it gave the impression that I had profits coming in. But and I see it happening today as well. People running a lot of projects. It gives the impression that there's a lot of great stuff happening. But if you're not tracking every project, tracking every dollar, paying every investor off, you're not. And especially when the money's easy. And in accelerating markets, the money's easy. And we watched it happen over the last few years. Again, somebody brings a deal to a lender and says, hey, this is for round numbers, this is $1 million property. I'm getting it for $600,000 and I need $200,000 to get it to the $1 million value. A lot of lenders will look at those numbers and say, okay, sounds great. I'm going to be in it to at 80% after everything is said and done. Here's your money. And then it's up to the operator to go and operate and actually execute, not steal the money by paying maybe their living expenses. And I did that. Maybe paying for other projects that they didn't quite finish, and I did that. And then the extreme example is people that take that $200,000, they buy it for $600,000, they've got that $200,000, and then they go and buy the expensive cars, the cool looking vacation houses. And while I hadn't done any of that, I had certainly robbed Peter to pay Paul. And most of the time it was taking money from one project and putting it on another project to try to finish it, rather than letting each project stand on its own. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I'm just saying.
Does it sound familiar?
Roger and I we have this debate all the time within our company. And the debate is, how do we measure our success? Right. And if you're going to the RIA clubs, what are you hearing? Oh, I did 40 flips last year, or I just bought 500 units in the last year and a half. Right. And I'm thinking, that's a number. That's really cool. But did you make any money in those 500 flips? Did you make it in all of those 500 units? Are you upside down? Are you just breaking even? I mean, numbers make it really sound really, really cool. But the ultimate scorecard for me is, at the end of the day, did we make any money?
100%, Earl. And one of the, I'm not too big to admit it took me a long time to acknowledge that the purpose of a business is to generate profits for the operators, for the owners. That's the point.
Yeah.
And if you're not making profits, if you're not driving a profitable business, there's no point in running a business. And in the flip business, like, you can make and lose money very fast, both of them.
I was also smiling when you talked about narcissistic behavior. I was diagnosed as a quote nice narcissist, which I think is a contradiction in terms, right? I'm like, where did that come from? I came to the conclusion that narcissistic just meant that you were that you're a man, basically. If you have some of those traits, you're probably and I probably should stop there, because Roger's giving me the scowl, like, fine, you're going off on your gender-based philosophy again. But the truth is, we're different in the way that we approach things, and that oftentimes is some of the things that we're raised as young men to do certain things, right? And the truth is that those are probably borderline narcissistic behaviors. So I don't know a man that drives around the block doesn't.
Earl,
yes, sir.
HR is calling me, and you need to go to their office.
There we go.
Hey, Brad.
Go ahead, Roger.
I got a question for you. Would you be willing to tell us about what the actual sentence for the jail time was?
Yeah. So I entered a plea bargain. I was charged. At one point, I had 22 different felonies that I was facing, felony charges. And I learned a lot about the justice system. But really what it came down to, that I could not fight, because, again, there was this, like, when they're charging you with fraud, there's this element of fraud. There's 9 different tests that the prosecution has to pass to prove that you committed fraud. I actually felt like I could, even though, like, in my heart, I knew I had been running. There's this, like, I'm throwing myself on the sword. I ran a bad business, but then there's the criminal element, which is a completely different thing. Ultimately, the biggest, the legal mistake that I had made is, at one point I had a lender/partner who was feeling, and he was a real estate guy as well, and he was feeling the pressure of the market slipping, and he had a romantic partner who was putting the pressure on him to collect from me. And I was shorting him on deals because I was getting him paid off selling properties, but they weren't paying him off completely. And he wanted me to sign a note and a trust deed on my own personal residence that I would basically pay him back any shortage. And the way I had structured my personal residence, it was in my wife's name, my then wife's name. And so I went to her and said, "Hey, I need you to take care of this guy, and I need to buy some time. And so I need you to sign this note and trust deed." It was going to be in a third position. because we had a first and then we had a HELOC. And so his was going to be in a third position. And as the market was falling, I was like, we don't have any equity anyway, so it doesn't really matter. If he wants to foreclose, he can foreclose. He gets no equity. It will be subject to the previous liens. It doesn't matter to me, the title position. She did not feel the same. And she said, no, I'm not signing that. He doesn't deserve that. So, but he was putting the pressure on me. She was putting the pressure on me. And I decided to make the pressure go away. I would forge her signature and sign the note and the trust deed that he wanted in third position. I told him that she had signed it. I had my escrow officer. I lied to him, told him that my wife had signed it. So he notarized it because he had done a lot of deals for us, and told him she wasn't feeling well. Total lie, total fabrication. And then I confessed that thing that I just told you to the Cottonwood Heights Police Department when they called me, when they got a complaint from this former partner of mine. And they said, well, as they listened to the story, they said, well, this sounds more like a civil case than a criminal case. But they kept the recording like they do. And then 4 years later, my ex-father-in-law, who had also lost money, decided he was the one who decided to press forward with the criminal complaint. He's an attorney. He built a really big case and basically gave it to the prosecution. And ultimately, the one thing that I was not going to be able to argue was I had committed forgery. And that was part of all of the complaints. Forgery carries a 1 to 15 year prison sentence, which I would for sure be found guilty of if I went in front of a jury. So my attorney got the prosecution gave me a plea bargain, an opportunity to plea to a third degree felony of communications fraud. So ultimately it was a 12-month sentence with restitution to be paid. So to pay back everybody who lost money, which was really tough for me because like a lot of people got their property back. Like one lender had lent money and they got the property back, but I had to sign a restitution order for the entire amount, not just the deficiency. Terrible. It was basically take it or leave it. And so like some of the people that I'm paying restitution back, they got the property back and they're getting all of their loan that they gave me back. So did I answer that question?
Yeah. And to follow that up, it seems like there was something like there was a wait in that time. And it seems like you went for a 50-50 custody of your kids. We talked about you, Roger. Something.
Yeah, that was that's a big part of it. And my wife always tells me to tell this part. And for some reason, I moved past it. So in 2012, my now wife, Tiffany, and I got married, and my ex-wife was keeping my kids from me. I would go to the house to their, it was actually her dad's house, my ex-father-in-law, the attorney. And often the kids just wouldn't come to spend their weekend with me. I got every other weekend. After doing that for several months, Tiffany said, Brad, we have to do something or you're not going to have any relationship with your kids. Is that what you want? And I said, no, of course not. So I filed an order to enforce the divorce decree, to enforce parent time, excuse me. Tiff and I, at that time, we didn't have much money. We were just starting our real estate business. And I remember sitting in the part of the court where you pay the fee to file something, and we had filled out our own order asking the court to enforce. And I said, like sitting there, and I said, Tiff, we're going to go down this road. I want you to understand this is going to open up a can of worms. Are you sure you want to do this? And she said, I don't care. They can do whatever they want. Let's do it. Your kids are worth it. And she was 100% right about that. So I filed this notice to enforce parent time, which we won. And I ended up having to hire an attorney after all, because they fought it. And it was shortly after I filed that. Look, I had been told when I got divorced in 2009, I'd been told by my ex-father-in-law, sign this divorce decree, and it was a terrible divorce decree. Sign this divorce decree, and I won't bother you. Leave the kids alone. I won't bother you. And I'm not making claims of extortion. I'm just saying that's what happened. and I signed that decree, and it was a terrible divorce decree for me in every way possible. Much like you, Earl, like I signed alimony and child support order that once I lost my real estate license in 2010, I didn't lose it, but I gave it back as part of these issues. My divorce decree and alimony were more than I was bringing in gross revenue. And so then I had to petition to the court to change that order. And that was a whole long process as well. But that act of asking the court to enforce parent time is what spurred the criminal complaint from my ex-father-in-law. He had put together the entire case, and he made it his purpose to make sure I saw jail time, and wasn't like shy about telling my kids that that's what he was going to do. And so this is not speculation. This is not like, this is exactly what happened. He's got, and ultimately, and this is, I don't blame him. And I want to make sure I'm clear about that. I do not blame him. I don't blame my ex-wife. If I wouldn't have made the mistakes that I made, if I wouldn't told the lies that I told, there would be nothing there that he would have had nothing to do. And so I created this, I gave him almost the canvas that he could then work with to help me, ultimately to get me into jail, which, like I said, became one of the best things that I've ever been through.
So I'm curious when you talk about that, how, when mine started, my fear was that they're going to somehow be able to alienate me from my kids. That has never been able to happen. I'm curious, have you been able to develop a relationship with your children since then?
Thank you, Earl. That's, it is absolutely my, one of my proudest accomplishments. I had 4 kids with my first wife. I have 3 stepchildren. They're not really stepchildren. They're my kids. And then my wife, Tiffany, and I have had 1 son. He's 9 years old, junior. And my relationship with my kids is amazing. Every single one of them. It wasn't always that way. It's been a process. My oldest daughter, for 3 years, was completely alienated from me. Wouldn't even talk to me. Maybe 4 years. And I went through periods with each of my children from my first wife where that was the case, where the relationship was tough or non-existent. And I tell fathers and mothers that have experienced alienation, because it was absolutely intentional alienation. They weren't even shy about saying, we think you should not be around your dad. Your dad's a bad guy. He's he doesn't believe the things that we believe anymore. He doesn't live the way that he should be living. You shouldn't be around him. And I just kept showing up with love. And I wasn't I wasn't exposing my kids to anything dangerous or evil, a different lifestyle than what they'd been accustomed to, for sure. But not anything that would ever that the courts anyway, or anybody else could have thought was dangerous for my kids. And so now, we have 2 vacations every year with our entire family. One around Christmas time. We rent we do a short-term rental somewhere. We find one normally somewhere in southern Utah, and we all go hang out for a week. 3 of my kids are married, and their spouses are wonderful. I was able to be involved in all of my kids' weddings. We talk often. All of my kids that have turned 18 at some point or another have worked for our real estate business that we have now. And 2 of them as agents, another one as transaction coordinator and administrative assistant, another one doing all the media stuff that we do. And then another one helping out with like going door to door, hanging flyers and other things. So my relationship with my kids is Tiffany and I's greatest accomplishment, 100%.
That is way, way cool. You know, we spent a little time on this podcast talking about what truly makes us happy. And, you know, Roger and I, Ben, we've all, you know, we've reached a point where if we're not out of the rat race, we're pretty close. We feel pretty good about some of the things we accomplish. And we talk on this podcast openly about how I personally would trade every bit of it for my kids, right? And that when I came pretty close to passing away a year ago, and when you're laying there in the hospital bed, you know, what you really have, it was my kids that came in every day and said, Dad, we just want to spend time with you, you know, and those are the things that make life really, really worth living, in my opinion. It's those associations with our family, loved ones that makes this all worthwhile.
Yeah, there's a realization at some point that the best things in life aren't things at all. And the richness, the joy, the happiness, the fulfillment, it's available. All of that we dream about. For me, ultimately, I define my success as being able to be full of love, joy, happiness, no matter what I'm going through. Because it doesn't matter. I mean, whether you're at a stage where you're at a point where you've made enough money and you don't have to work, so you're out of the rat race, or you're starting out, or like you hit rock bottom and you're starting from nothing or below nothing. It doesn't matter where you're at. You're going to have a plan for what you're going to go through, and the plan's going to get fucked up. Like, it's just going to get messed up. And having money gives you the ability to write checks to take care of some of the mess ups in the plan, right? But it doesn't guarantee that you will be able to have joy, peace, happiness, fulfillment. There's no guarantee of that. That is something that you choose every day. That's something you're going to pursue in relationships, in things that are lasting. But nothing, at the end of the day, nothing lasts. We are guaranteed, as we're sitting here breathing, that there will be one last breath that each one of us will take. And we have no idea of knowing when it is. And in my opinion, I don't think we would want to. And so because of that we don't know when it's going to happen, and we know that's the only thing we're guaranteed, well, that and taxes, that why not make the most of what we have at every single moment? Because we drive past accidents every day. And every once in a while, you may have the misfortune of seeing an accident where you know somebody passed. And if you've ever had that experience of driving just on the freeway and see a body bag on the freeway or on the road, that person's last breath had happened. And they didn't expect it when they got in that ride. They did not expect it when they were commuting. They thought everything would be just like it was the previous day. And it's over. And so, yeah, Earl, those relationships, those matter. The money in the bank, as much as it affords us the ability to have more of those experiences, move us closer, then it matters. Once it's not moving us closer and on this path towards true peace, true joy, true enlightenment, true fulfillment, it doesn't matter. Because there is a point, we all know, where it just doesn't make much of a difference. The stories there's so many stories of miserable billionaires. So happiness, success, when you guys talk about retiring happy, because there's retirement and then there's happiness. And I love that you guys make it as part, like they go hand in hand. They should, or I shouldn't say should. They can go hand in hand. I try to avoid shoulds as much as possible, by the way.
So great. We want to switch gears, I think, just for a little bit here.
Perfect.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the things that you are doing now. It sounds like, and I was laughing. You said, "Oh, your kids got in." Most of them have been involved in real estate in some fashion or other. Your current wife is involved in real estate. I don't know if it's when I was in college, I used to joke that the A students went to Wall Street, the B students went to insurance and banking, and the dummies that could barely make it to class ended up in real estate. I don't know if it's some sort of a curse that we put on our kids, but my dad was in real estate. I'm trying to get some of my kids involved in it now, so I don't know if that's what that is, but I'm curious about some of the things that you're doing now that you've obviously you've turned the corner. I think you're doing fairly well in your real estate stuff. Tell me a little bit what that looks like now.
Well, so the businesses that we run now, we run a real estate sales team. My wife, like you said, she's an agent broker. We opened up our own brokerage in 2020, and then last year we closed it to join Real Brokerage. But we continue running a sales team, so regular listings, buyers, that whole stuff. My role in that is I serve as kind of the sales manager, trainer, using all of my experience in real estate to help people solve real estate problems. And then I'm not licensed and probably will never be licensed again. So we also run I call myself a real estate entrepreneur because we do invest and own property, we also use real estate as a business. And I think this is an important distinction, like the Utah Real Estate Investors Association. I love the networking and the business, but like you talked about, a lot of people are there because they want to flip houses. Not everybody, but a lot of people. And I don't consider flipping houses, which I do. I don't consider it real estate investing. Because real estate investing or any investing is deploying an amount of money for a future income. In my opinion, that's how I define an investment. And then the majority of the real estate flip guys and gals, we don't do it with any of our own money or very little of our own money. We don't keep money into the house. At least you hope you don't very long. You hope you're moving properties. So So that's our real estate. That's our business of flipping houses. And I'm always careful to let people know that's not real estate investing. I could do that business with any product, right? I could flip trailers. I could flip couches. I could flip whatever I can buy for cheap, add a little value, and then sell for more. And then we run. Then our investing strategy is based around assets that appreciate. Real estate, which we own, and are always looking to buy. The real estate we own are single family residential. We have not made the move into multifamily. One day, maybe when I grow up a little bit, I'll move up into the multifamily realm or get over my my own limiting beliefs and stories that I have around that business. Currently, we own 11 doors, rentals. Not all of them have been converted, but either are rentals or being converted into rentals. And a lot of those were born because we paid too much for properties over the last, before the correction. And so properties that we thought we were going to flip are now long-term holds, candidly. But that's okay because we said, look, this could be the thing that we do. We could end up owning properties. We do that. And then we're launching a mastermind and coaching program. One of the things we want to do is help other married couples that work together. My wife is a certified yoga instructor. I'm finishing up my own yoga teacher training. And I know people might, like, when I say yoga, they think, well, that's like an exercise. I actually practice a yoga that is much more involved with the inner work of healing, of personal growth than just the movement of yoga. There are actually 8 limbs of yoga and lots of different ways to practice yoga, from meditation to movement, breath, and then also inner work, doing this personal growth. So while we haven't completely launched that, we've got the website up and going, and our name for that is the True Conscious Couple. And we want to work with real estate investors to grow our network, to do more deals. And then we want to work with couples to help keep couples together. Because I believe the most difficult relationship to manage in your life will be your romantic relationship. And I think the stats prove it out. Because whatever the percentage of failed marriages is that actually show up in the stat line, we know that the remaining that stay together, like how many of those are actually happy, fulfilled relationships, or are they relationships, like just this terrible thing that people just stay in because they feel trapped? And we believe that's a choice. I believe that's a choice. And you can choose to stay in a bad relationship, or you can choose to make your relationship with somebody that you loved at one point. You can choose to make it another great relationship. But when you take the most difficult relationship that you have, which is your romantic relationship, and then you add working together, I mean, you guys work together. Is it easy to work together with a partner? No, it's not. And then you add
mine are really, really easy, by the way. That's right. No, I'm just kidding.
Earl's got it real easy.
Yeah. So, but for most people, working with a partner it's its own challenge, and it's its own. And then when you make that partner the person that you lie in bed with every night, they're really interesting dynamics that happen there. And so Tiff and I have spent the better part of our now almost 11-year marriage and 13-year relationship working together. And so we've, with the added pressure of doing jail, having 8 kids, running businesses together through good times and bad times, we've had to discover some real strategies and mindset because we're not okay being in a bad relationship. I'm not okay being in a bad relationship. And so we want to help others that are struggling with that.
I've shared this on this podcast before, but I believe that we're sent here to grow and develop, right? That's our purpose of being here on Earth, is that we're here to grow and develop. I think that God created that marital relationship, knowing that there's no other relationship on the planet that can try and test you more than having to be with someone of the opposite sex for as much time as we do. And I say that, my wife would amen that all, she's, you're just as hard to deal with as I am, kind of a thing. And,
yes.
But those relationships are so key to, again, back to happiness, right? What is it when we define happiness at the end? It's those close relationships that we have, whether it's our wife, it's our children, our friends, our family. All of those things are what really define happiness for us. And so I think working on those relationships is so incredibly vital. My wife and I have gotten to the point, the same things still make us mad, right?
Yeah.
We've just decided we're old enough now that I'm not changing her and she's not changing me. So we need to just smile and I'll put this toothpaste lid on for her, and she can make the bed for me in the morning, and we'll just have a nice day in spite of it, or whatever,
Well, and that's a great point. Relationships there's a lot of give and take that goes into relationships, and the truest point is that your partner that you've decided, whether you've decided to do it through marriage or you've decided to do it as however you want to define your life partner, you are both going to trigger each other, drive each other crazy, and show each other every weakness, every trauma, every crappy story that you tell yourself, they're the ones who are going to help you see it. And what happens a lot of times is people think, oh, well, this person makes me doubt myself, or this person makes me question this. They must not be right for me. I see those emotional challenge, negativity, the trigger. I see those as shining a light on some healing that you have to do, some emotional, some spiritual, some kind of healing that you need to do. Now, being in a relationship with somebody who knows you very well and is going to hold you accountable to your nonsense and to, quite frankly, our bullshit as men, that if growth is the goal, you have to encounter like in business, you're not going to grow in a business if you're not dealing with the thing that's holding you back. Like whether it's a lack of marketing, poor budgetary constraints on projects, whatever the thing is that's holding you back, if you don't fix it, your business is not going to grow. True or true?
That's absolutely true.
So you, in a relationship, the relationship is going to show you these personal things that you might not like about yourself. And oftentimes it comes up as anger projected to somebody else, when really it's just the thing you don't like about yourself. And so having an awareness that growth, I'm 100% with you, Earl, growth is the goal. And so how do you grow? Can you grow without some kind of pain? I don't think you can.
Not very easily.
I don't think you can grow without pain. Whether it's like if you're going to work out, you've got to go through pain. If you are going to grow as a business, it's going to require some pain. Like you're going to have to work long hours, probably. You're going to have to change who you are. You're going to have to take some risks that might make you uncomfortable. That can be painful. And you're probably going to have to lose sometimes. You're probably going to have to do some bad deals. And those are painful. But it's the suffering.
Even worse, sometimes we have to say, gosh, I was wrong. I'm sorry.
For me, it's about 75% of the time, Earl. I mean, I'm not keeping track. It might be more.
I still think my wife has a little ring on the back of my shoulder. She just pulls it. And I say, you're right, dear. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, and that's an interesting thing, too, because this is one of the things that I work on a lot, and I'm not perfect at it. When that thing has come up, you're right. I'm sorry. And here's what I'm going to do to fix it. Here's the steps I'm going to take to be better next time. Because nothing's more aggravating to a partner than to keep saying, hey, you're doing the same thing over and over and over again. And you keep saying sorry. Sorry then becomes this manipulation to say, leave me alone. I don't want to deal with it. Rather than saying, I apologize. And here's how I'm going to fix it. I'm actually going to put the lid on the toothpaste.
Don't go that far.
Right.
No, I'm just kidding.
Well, and for me and my wife in running our business, like I have to tell her, I'm sorry. Here's how I'm going to report our numbers differently. Here's how I'm going to work with our bookkeeper differently. Here's how I'm going to deal with subcontractors differently. And then keep my word. And then when I mess up, because I'm guaranteed to mess up. Nobody here, my dad tells me all the time, there's only been one perfect guy that's lived on this earth, and they crucified him for it. So the rest of us are imperfect, and we're going to continue to be imperfect. And that's okay. But owning up to it and facing, because that mistake, that whatever, it's just an opportunity for growth. It's just an opportunity to get better.
Roger, you've got a couple follow-up questions about where moving forward and that type of thing. You want to take over for a minute?
Yeah, I just want to thank you for this therapy, and just let me know what your Venmo is so we can do all that. And then we're going to have to make sure that the editor does not let Bonnie hear any of that. No, just kidding. That's really been awesome. I appreciate you sharing all that. So going forward, what are you planning? Is there a retirement in your future? Is there direction, goals that you have right now?
Yeah, so we have a 5-year goal to add 100 doors to our rental portfolio. That's our primary escape the rat race goal. And then we have our parameters for buying whole property. Now, that's a big number for me. I'm going to be candid with you. And I know for some people that own thousands and thousands of doors, that's no big deal. I had to get through a lot of limiting beliefs to even set a goal of owning 100 doors. And real estate is the vehicle for exiting real estate and for exiting the day-to-day of sales business, because we sell stuff, we wholesale stuff, we flip stuff. And we all know that, I mean, that's it's a wonderful business, but it's a business like any other business. And so first strategy is to build the business where the business operates, whether I'm there or not. And we're not there yet. So building a scalable business, that's number one. And then building our assets to the point where the income from the assets, the leveraged income, pays for our expenses. That's goal number two. And according to my calculations, within 5 years of accumulating 100 properties that are cash flowing adequately enough, we should be able to do that, which for me would be an incredible personal victory, because as I exited jail with $1 million restitution, literally $1 million restitution order, and it was like 996,000, close enough to make, I might call it whatever it is, close enough. I had to. I was confronted with this idea that I would have to operate as a ghost the rest of my life, never really own anything, or I could get to work paying it all off, getting right with everybody ever, and building a net worth big enough to provide for my wife and my family as we age.
That's awesome. That's a limiting belief that you just canned and got rid of. So
yes,
bravo for that.
It did not happen overnight. I left jail in September of 2016. We're sitting here today in April of 2023. This has been a work in progress and is a continual work in progress, because the thing with limiting beliefs and the things with these stories that our ego wants to glom onto, they don't just go away. I mean, they can come up at any point, and God, the universe, creator, whoever you want to call your higher power, at some point is going to want to check in with you and see if you've really done the work necessary to move through those beliefs, because they will continue. They will cycle back. Those thoughts are they can be cyclical, just like the seasons, and they can come back to you, and then they can be your detriment, or they can be another opportunity for growth.
Absolutely. Earl, do you have anything else to follow up with?
Yeah, well, I'm curious. It sounds like you're. It's probably a bad assumption. It sounds like you're mostly paid off with you've got this big nut out there that you have to come your restitution order. Is that pretty close?
There are two elements to the restitution. There was a court ordered, which was $100,000, and that's been paid off because that's what got me off of probation. And then there's the remaining balance that I'm still working on. Okay. It's interesting how it happens, Earl, because that's not a court ordered amount. So it enters as a civil judgment with a very low interest rate. So I'm treating it like I would any loan with a low interest rate. And it's part of my snowball strategy to pay off all debt.
It's amazing with real estate is one of the few things that I guess there's other forms of businesses too, but we've seen it in the last few years where our equity jumped by several million in just a really, really short period of time through real estate investing, and I'm sure that's part of your plan.
Yes.
To get that paid off. It's 100% what real estate can do for you.
Yeah, 100%. And I've shared this publicly as well. My biggest, if you want to call it a regret or mistake, is I just haven't held on to enough. Even since 2016, since I got out of jail, if I would have just consistently added 3 or 4, just even single family houses every year, which we had the ability to figure out. We allowed the stories, our limiting beliefs, to keep us from holding as much as we could have. And so now, and honestly, it's been it's been just in the last 2 years that I've re-engaged in education, in workshops, in networking. And that has probably been one of the biggest pieces of opening my mind back again that, look, number one, I'm not the only person that ever hit zero or worse. And if anybody can build back from that, then I'm able to. Like if anybody's ever been able to do it, then I can. And so it did open up the possibilities of true financial freedom where, like I said, for a long time, I thought that's not part of my destiny. That's not part of my life experience. I'm destined to just work until I die.
Very cool. Well, I think Roger, we ready for the final four?
Yeah, let's do the final four.
Cool.
Brad, what is your favorite business book?
Man, I would have to say if I had only one book to run my business off of, I would choose The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber.
It's a great book.
Yeah.
We've touched this over and over, but what brings you happiness?
Ultimately, I've got amazing relationships, and those bring me great happiness. My kids, my wife. Ultimately, it's knowing my purpose. And ironically, the thing that I think I'm best at in the world and in my life is helping other people find their purpose as well. And so, because I believe a purpose-driven life can be one of the most beautiful lives lived. And so if I can help other people find their purpose, it feeds me more than anything else.
And I caught you at the previous Utah RIA, and you recommended Man's Search for Meaning.
Yes.
Victor Evankel. And that is, the whole thing behind that book. Like surviving through the worst is having goals, and you have to put a goal into, such and such as poor, mental state to get them to move forward. So it's a strong understanding.
Yeah. It was when I read Viktor Frankl and he described realizing that his purpose was to help other people find purpose. It resonated so much with me. And I was in jail and I was serving as a de facto therapist for addicts and victims of abuse and all kinds of terrible situations. And I realized, wow, me and Viktor Frankl, like I get that, because that's the thing that feeds me the most as well.
It's awesome. What do you think is the best way to give back? What's the best way that you give back?
The best way I give back is helping others understand this this mindset of persistence and of and teaching this basic idea. I believe really wholeheartedly that you can feed a man for a day if you give him a fish, but you can feed a man for a lifetime if you teach him how to fish. And so the best way I can give back is by teaching others truly how to fish for happiness, how to fish for purpose, how to fish for joy.
That is so cool, man. We so much appreciate you being here with us today. We do this quite often, and there are certain guests that I just go, that was really, really great. He did such a great job and brought so much to our listeners, and we appreciate you being willing to take a few minutes today. And we and sincerely hope that our listeners will take some directions from what you've shared here, be able to put that into their lives and make their lives a little bit better. I know that I feel sometimes I feel like my life is greatly enriched by the opportunity that I have to associate with people and help bring some of this stuff out. I am really, really grateful for the the opportunity we have to give back and share a little bit through this podcast and other things that we do. But man, we really, really appreciate you and wish you the very, very best with your business and the things that you've got going forward coming up.
Thank you, Earl. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I really appreciate you doing this and also being willing to come and also have Tiffany come, because I think we're getting some good details and everything else. So it's going to be a great couple of episodes. I'm stoked.
Well, I'm excited, and I appreciate you guys are walking examples of persistency and of leading by example. They're in an age when there are more gurus than actual practitioners. It seems like you guys are walking the walk, and that thing you said, Earl, about like, are you making money? That's a key thing that people forget in this business. And you guys are sharing and enriching my life, and willing to share it. Pull up your skirts and say, this is how we've done it. This is how we're doing it. It's that is so meaningful and so beautiful, rather than the hype machine of this is what you could do, or this is what so-and-so is doing. So
we are going to talk to you about our coaching and mentorship program after we stop the recording.
Fantastic.
Just kidding. We don't have one.
I know you don't.
I spent a lot of time working for coaching mentorship programs, by the way. So it was a lot of fun. Yeah. I learned so much from doing it, but to me, it was limiting my ability to focus on, if I really understood what I was doing, that I needed to spend more time working on my business and a lot less time teaching people I thought they should run theirs.
Yeah. That's one truth that I'm hit with often. When I say I know something, am I living that? Because if you're not living it, you don't really know it.
Yep.
You're studying it, but you don't know it, because knowing it means you're living it. So when people say they know about financial freedom, that's because they're living it. And that's my final thing I would say about, and I say this all the time, when you're choosing gurus, and there's so many gurus out there, make sure that the guru you choose is really living the physical reality that you are working towards. If they're not, they should not be a guru, which is why I don't, I rarely hire gurus that aren't married, because being in a married relationship is something that I care a lot about. So
I would add to that, gurus that don't have kids.
And gurus that don't have kids. Yeah.
If you don't understand that whole dichotomy, the way it works, relationships with kids, don't tell me what to do.
Yeah. It's not to say that, philosophers and others, they can't have, and even thought leaders, they can have good thoughts and good ideas. But yeah, if you're going to tell me how to live my daily life, are you doing it with that, balancing that entire thing of kids and relationships and all of that? So
how can our listeners find you? Social media?
Yeah, public profiles, the Brad Lancaster on Instagram. Our Tiffany and I's joint page is called True Conscious Couple, TRU, with no E, like you see behind me, TRU. True Conscious Couple. You can also find me on Facebook, Brad Lancaster. And then I don't really tweet much. We do have a couple of YouTube channels, but they're under True Agency, our real estate brokerage, True Agency Real Estate. And our podcast, True Conscious Couple Podcast, TRU Conscious Couple. That comes out every week. And that is primarily a relationship-focused podcast. We don't talk a lot about real estate other than how it impacts our day-to-day.
Very good. Well, that's it. Thanks for joining us on the Retire Wealthy and Happy podcast. We'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks so much, Brad. We really appreciate your time.
You bet, guys. Have a great day. Thanks again.
Yep, you too.
Talk soon. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Hope you got value from this episode. And if you have a minute, then take the time to leave an honest written review for the podcast, because we take those reviews seriously and it'll help us serve you better on the next episodes. And most importantly, be sure to start taking action so you can control your financial future today.